What's up everyone? Today we're doing a track prep video by request. You guys have demanded this video. So I'm gonna go through, show you guys what I do to prep for track day, what I carry and whatnot. If you've already been to the track and you got it down, then you can watch. This is more for people who haven't been to the track and just kind of, need to know what to expect or what to do. Had some questions. So here we go. I recently switched my EG down to 15-inch wheels, and I lowered it a lot now that I have a lowering trailer. So what I'm working on right now is, I'll show you down here, the shocks, the JRZ suspension. So if you look right here on the spring, well, I lowered it a lot. So now I had a huge gap right here, correct? So what I had to do is get a smaller spring with a helper spring, same suspension rates, or spring rates, sorry. But that way this spring is not loose, especially when it droops down in the corners, because I could feel it already. And it's just really annoying, and you shouldn't drive like that anyway. This particular suspension is not designed to where you screw the bottom up and down and you preset the load right here on the spring. This is a little different. So if you have this, you have to do what I'm doing. So I'll show you guys on the other side. I kind of, not completed, but kind of set it up. And that's what it'll look like. Nothing's tightened yet, but you get the idea. So now you have a smaller spring, and then you have a helper spring. So that way this spring is not, again, this isn't tightened, but this spring isn't flopping around everywhere, especially on droop when you go in a hard corner, which I found last track day I had a little bit. So, and then I'll give you an idea over here. This is the spring that came out. This is the spring going back in. So you see the difference in size, which is perfect. And then you use a spacer, or sorry, a little, whatever you call it. And then this is the helper, and then it just squishes down to wherever it goes. And that's it. So I gotta do that right now. And then I'll show you what I do next on the car after I finish this. So one of the best tips that I'm going to give you guys in this video, it's nothing new. People have been doing it for years, but it is a really good thing to do. This is an oil-based Sharpie. If only I could get it to focus. Anyway, there's probably a bunch of different styles that people buy. I don't know. I don't really care. So whatever you want to use is great. As long as it does the job. I bought this one because I found it at Michael's, and Michael's is down the street, and it's easy for me to buy. So there's some bolts over here that I was checking that have been marked for years. Hasn't came off, but if you need to take it off, a tad bit of elbow grease or a little bit of acetone will take it right off. So back here, I just finished up tightening the suspension, and as you can see, I put the marks on each of the bolts. So the reason I do this is because if you're at the track and you have to troubleshoot something, the last thing you want to do is spend most of your track day troubleshooting. So it's really easy for me to stick my hand under here, check all the bolts, be like, oh yeah, they're still there, they're still tight in the spot they were. The other biggest part of this is in the engine bay. We'll get there in a few as part of the track prep, but this is one of the best tips that I'm going to give you, and it makes your life a lot easier to check everything. She's back on the ground. With the change of the different size springs and everything, when I dropped it, it was like tucking the tire, so I had to switch up the height a little bit. So now I think it's about where it was, where I like it. I'm gonna go drive around a little bit, let the suspension settle, see if it moves, and then do the final tuning on it. Drove it around a little bit, really happy with how it sits, exactly where I want it. So we're good here, everything's tightened up on the suspension. So now we're gonna move to the engine bay, like I was explaining to you guys earlier about marking all your hardware. Especially the important things like, come on, stay up. Like your engine mounts, you know, things that could rattle. Because we all know that most of us run Hotsport mounts, or most mounts that are going to make your car vibrate. So things do sometimes rattle a little bit loose, or something. Sometimes things come loose. So if you look here, for example, I have the lines here, and again, these have been here for a few years, so you can see that the marker works pretty good. So I just go through these and check them all. So you see I have some right here on the transmission mount. So instead of checking your torque spec on each one, which takes a lot longer, I can go through real quick and look at all the marks. See, I even have some in the back. Look at all the marks on all the hardware. That way, it's a lot easier for me to verify that nothing has came loose. So that, like I said, is one of the biggest things that you should be doing before a track day. The other thing is most hosts that host the track days, they'll have what's called the tech sheet, and it tells you what you have to check before you get on the track. You want to do that the day before, because if you find something that's not going to pass, you want to obviously fix it before you get to the track. Because again, you don't want to be fixing stuff at the track. That's not the goal. You want to be driving. So most of them are about the same, the tech sheets, but they do vary from different hosts. But it's going to be things like your wheel bearings, checking your brakes, checking your tires, lug nuts, etc. Most importantly, things like your wheel bearings, things that you don't really check a lot, And then the other thing is you don't want to have things that can fly around in your car. So for example, I recently took my seats out and replaced it with one Recaro because I just had a baby and my wife doesn't really drive with me anymore. So then I realized, why even put a passenger seat in? Like, nobody ever uses it. Kind of a waste of a seat. Plus, I could put packages in here and stuff when I want to daily drive my car. So, like, things like this harness is still here. This is flopping around everywhere. I'll take it out. Because the track people don't want to see things flying around. So I'll take this harness out. It's a pretty simple job anyway. And besides that, I think that's the only thing that's loose in here. I'll probably just leave the base to the seat in here. I'll take the harness off the floor. Yeah. So, you want to make sure your battery's tied down. Right here we have the Checkerd Sports PC680 battery mount. Make sure all your wiring's good. So the next thing you're going to want to do is move to under the car, and you'll want to check for any oil leaks or anything like that, any fluids leaking. Check your calipers and everything, all your hoses. Make sure that nothing is leaking. Another thing that I forgot to mention to check while I was in the car is your equipment. So anything from seats, harnesses, helmets, hunch device, fuel cell bladders, they all have a date. So for wheel-to-wheel racing, it can't be more than 5 years. For just a simple track day, it's 10 years. However, most track day hosts, they don't even check this stuff. However, I do recommend that you replace this stuff because it is your safety on the line. But a lot of people think that just because your harness is outdated, that you can't go on the track. That's only for wheel-to-wheel racing, like hardcore stuff. So if you look here, we have not valid after 2024. So we still have 2 years left until this harness is 5 years old. And then we still have 5 more years after that for just simple track days. That seat's brand new. So back there on the FIA sticker, it shows you the expiration date for the 5 years. If you're getting into racing, also the bladder inside a fuel cell, it has to be changed. I want to say it's 5 years as well, and you have to bring your certificate if you're doing wheel-to-wheel racing for the bladder to show that you've replaced it or that it's not over 5 years. So there's those things you got to check as well. Same thing with, like I said, your helmet. If you're doing wheel-to-wheel racing, you're going to have to check a lot more than that. And that's why things get expensive when you race. But again, this is just a simple track day, so we don't have to worry about 5 years. Most of the times, they just require 10. Fluids are now topped off and checked as far as coolant, oil, and brake and clutch. So now we're going to go over to pack some tools. So I take some basic necessity tools. I don't take a lot of crazy things. If I feel like if I have to do that much work at the track, I'm like, I'll just trailer it home. So, you know, your basics, your sockets, I got to find these two. Pliers, cutters, Allens, metric standard, wrenches. So you want to get yourself a good torque wrench for your wheels. This one's decent. You can buy some crazy snap-on stuff, whatever you want to buy. Hammer is a must, screwdrivers. I always carry this baby impact, this thing gets it. And then a drill. And then I always carry unibits just in case you have to do a hole somewhere. With these, you don't have to carry every single size of drill bit, so it's nice. I always carry extra fluid for brakes, oil, etc. One good thing I always recommend, zip ties. Get yourself a small one and some big ones. People always need zip ties at the track. The other highly recommended thing is tire pressure gauge. So whether you get a cheapo, mediocre, or mid-grade, or like a high-end, your bougie raised one. I was actually really curious on how off the cheap ones would be, and I just tested some tires. So the Rays and this Blue Point digital one, they were actually pretty close to each other, like within half a pound of each other. And then this guy, this cheapo one right here, this one was like 3 over. And then this guy was 2 under. So I would, for the track, I would recommend at least, you know, a mid-grade one. If you have the money, get yourself a bougie Rays. I sell them if you want one. But something like a mid-grade like this one, this works good. But again, I'm not a huge fan of digital. I'm more of an old school style. So the other last thing is I always throw all my tools and stuff in bags. So get yourself a snap-on one, husky one, whatever. I have a ton of these. They work great, and the reason I stopped using toolboxes is because they take up way more room. So I started using bags, and it's kind of cool because I throw them in the back of my truck, like in the cab, and they take up less room. So that's pretty much it, guys, as far as this. So the last thing to do, you know, now I'm just going to load my car in the trailer and then strap it down. That way when I wake up, I can just wake up, grab my coffee, and leave. Alright guys, that's it. All loaded up, ready for the morning. It's a good thing I actually went through everything. Also, not just the car, but the trailer. I found that one of the bolts that hold this mount, that holds the fender, had rattled loose. I was just going through it and I saw it was missing. So it's a good thing to go through everything, like I said. So make a second video of Trek Day. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, and I hope that this helps some of you. So if you go on your first Trek Day, like I said, just take a good day and kind of go over everything and make sure you have everything. Make a checklist and print out the checklist, the tech list on who's ever hosting the event. All right, make sure to subscribe, comment, all that to help out the channel. Thank you.